Let me say something that's got a bit of chili powder with it. If your business feels heavy, it feels stuck, or it's just way harder than you think it should be, it's probably not your strategy that's the problem. It's the version of you that your business now has outgrown. Today, I'm going to walk you through the exact identity shifts that unlock the next stage of your business without you having to grind harder or burning yourself out. Now, we know this because we work with over 2,400 businesses for well over a decade, and there's a very, very predictable pattern that shows up every time. The business stalls when the leader stops evolving, or they're evolving, but they're doing it incorrectly. So what I'll take you through is why pressure and tension are predictable, the 4 stages every business moves through to get to 20 million and beyond, the specific identity shifts required at each stage, and how to diagnose the exact shift that you're avoiding right now. If you want to just cut to the chase, then download the Identity Performance Scorecard. It's a self-diagnostic tool that we'll put into the link. Make sure you grab it, fill it in. It's going to help you to be super precise of where you are and what you need to do next. Most owners interpret pressure as failure, and it isn't. Pressure is actually a signal that evolution is required. Now, as the business grows, the pressure increases because you've got more money going out the door, you've got more people, more decisions, and a lot of consequences and a lot of things happening, and that's normal. So let's go back to a training that I did. If you look at, we'll put a link to the video I did. I went through and explained this video. There is a natural cycle. So let's talk about the first one here, and let's talk about pressure. Pressure creates tension. Okay, that's what I went through before. Pressure creates tension. And what that does is it creates discomfort. Now, the problem with that is that people see discomfort as being negative, and that shouldn't happen. There's a sense of self-doubt that gets in. People get irritable, and maybe there's some people have some control issues that start to kick into gear because the pressure, which is normal, but as you expand, you get bigger, the pressure increases, it creates greater tension. Most owners respond by trying to remove the tension instead of using the tension for them. So what are some of the common avoidance behaviors? They jump back in on low-value tasks. They micromanage to feel safe. They're working longer hours because they think if I work longer hours, I can regain control. They also start to avoid or delay important decisions because they think, it might be a little destabilizing. They also go, I've got that team member, I know they're not a right fit, but I'll just keep on with them and I'll keep them for a little bit longer because we kind of need it right now. The problem is the pressure shouldn't be telling you to work harder, and that's the way that most people respond. What it's really telling you is that your current identity, which is the next piece here, the current identity is not going to continue to serve you. It served you well to that point, but it doesn't serve you in the next level. If the pressure is if that pressure is increasing, creating tension and identity, and the capacity in the business being also your mental capacity, your ability to think, to do creative thinking, to think strategic. What happens if that doesn't expand, then the business starts to flatline because tension is an essential ingredient for growth. People want to avoid this because they don't like it. It's like, I've got a headache, I get an aspirin. Well, maybe if you had a lot more water and a little bit of salt, that'll help you out as well. But you want the quick fix without knowing that the obstacle is the way, from the good book from Ryan Holiday. So the tension, we want to use the tension to go, this is leading me into a different identity. And this is why the same strategy that built the business to here eventually stop working when you want to get to here. The old adage of what got you here won't get you there. So what that means is with the pressure, we then get the tension. That's leading me. I realize I need a new identity, a new role on how I show up. And that's what creates the evolution. And once you've got the evolution, guess what happens? You go back into the pressure. And this here is what's called the hero's journey. Where people get stuck is this bit here is they're thinking the discomfort shouldn't happen. When I'm bigger, everything's going to be fine. And it's not. It's your identity that's going to be the blocker. As soon as you change your identity, the business will evolve and the pressure will, on the next stage, will kick into gear. So what we want to really develop here is your ability to go through and evolve that identity for the very specific stage of the businesses. That's what I'm going to do now. Your biggest strength at one level becomes the biggest bottleneck at the next. Every stage of business has different rules and different physics. The early stage success, which is built on speed, is built on instinct, it's built on sweat of your own brow, your personal effort, that identity was actually essential. It actually, in the 0 to 2 million, it's actually what is needed the most. But as complexity increases, which is that defining point going on, the behaviors start breaking in the system. And what's important to understand in this early phase in here, this phase here is what we call the pioneering phase. This is where you're getting your engine room set up. In another video we've gone through talking about the 6 engine rooms. Once you go beyond this, there's a completely different strategy that is required, and they are very different at each one of these stages. So the key point to understand is that at each one of these stages, it requires a new physics, a new rules to set it up to make sure you win at that place. And just know that this winning strategy that got you here is the losing strategy to get to the next place. In this early stage, you're still the fastest problem solver in the room. You become the person that everyone still comes to for decisions. So you become the bottleneck for decision making. You're helping everywhere, but progressing nowhere. And you feel essential to the business, but you quietly resent it. And then what I see happen is really hardworking, dedicated owners double down on what made them successful in their early days because it feels familiar and it feels safe. But familiarity doesn't give leverage and it does not make you safe. Certainly it doesn't make you safe in the medium to long term. And what happens is the business stalls. You don't scale by refining this old identity. You scale by letting it die. Winning strategies in one level, they need to expire. And once you accept that, the next question becomes really obvious. Well, what stage am I really at? And what specific identity does that stage require? So this is the Evolve scaling system and understanding for each revenue band what the identity shift are. This goes from startup all the way to 325 million, and it goes beyond that. For the purpose of today though, for most people are going to fit in the under 25 million. And I'm going to focus on the top half of this today. So let's go through the first part, and that is the revenue range from 0 to $2 million. So in this phase here, this is quite a unique phase because in this phase, it's very much around being the builder. And being in the builder phase is what we call an activity-based leader or an activity-based identity that people take on board, which is actually what is required. You're doing everything yourself, you're making sure it's right, you're putting time into things that need to be done, and speed counts a lot. What we're really doing here is helping to get a proven identity. And so you're very much in this, what we call the doer phase. And the founder is the bottleneck and everything flows through them. The shift that we want to, and one of the things we go through is there's a sweet spot, and each one of these levels, there is a sweet spot. That range is fine, but there's a sweet spot within there that you want to be aiming your business to get into to make sure that you're going to be not only great revenue, but also great profit. And so what we're looking here is the shift that they need to take once you've gone from 0 to 2 and you want to go to 2 to 4, is we need to get into understanding how to delegate, but specifically looking at how to delegate the delivery or the customer success part of it. Let's jump on to the second stage. The second stage we're going to here is when the business is doing between $2 to $4 million. And if you have to title that phase, it's very much in the delegator phase. And we're moving, because you're moving in from being a delegator, the shift that's required when you're in this place here is from being a delegator to a systemizer. Where we see the blocks or the tension, remember the tension is normal, the tension is what's directing you, and that's where I need to focus, not hide from it or push it away. It's where people feel chaos, inconsistency, there's a bit of tribal knowledge that kicks into gear here as well. And this is is really probably the first real identity shift, because most people are going to come in on this first level with that in their nature. And now they're going to make this real shift of like, oh, I'm going to have to change. And delegation, initially, when most people don't know how to do it properly, can often create more chaos. Oh, I need to delegate. So they hear and they go, oh, delegate, but they do it so poorly and they get bad feedback and go, I'm not going to do that. Now, we do have in our other videos explanation on specifically how you can delegate effectively, but this is a really, really important skill and the identity shift here for people to change if they're going to move beyond this. And this is where the most roadkill happen in this spot here. Most people don't pass from the 0 to 2. At best, we know that out of 100 businesses at start, only 1% get above $1 million. That means 99% are less than $1 million. That's what this group is here that make up the 1%. So this is rarefied air. So if you're listening to this, yes, you need to be, if you're in the builder phase, go for it, go for broke. But as soon as you've done that stage, you want to kick over into this stage here in being very much into thinking about how can I delegate what I'm doing and make sure that I'm on point when I do that. That leads us into the third stage. And the third stage is very much when the business is in this 4 to 8 million. Now, if the most amount of roadkill happens from stage 1 to stage 2, as in most people don't cross across, but there's a one tiny little benefit at that point. And the one tiny bit of benefit is the stakes are not as high. They're okay. And usually you can course correct quite quickly because you don't have as many people in your team. You don't have as much complexity. But once you start to move over and you're getting into this 4 to 8 million, this phase here and right through till we get into the 15 million mark, this is where most businesses actually go out of business because the stakes are way, way, way higher. Underneath that, or before that, you make a mistake, what costs you 10 grand, 20 grand. But once you get into this $4 to $8 million, you make the wrong mistake, or you don't pull the trigger on something you kept that bad eye. In fact, I just had a meeting literally just before this that I had a great business owner. It was an accountancy firm that just told me we can track the one decision to not fire a certain team member in their team that cost them $400,000. And that was a significant amount of money. So that's the sort of stuff that happens when you get into this $4 to $8 million, is a mistake or a poor decision because you're too busy ends up costing 50, 100, or in this example, $400,000. And it doesn't need to be this way. The key thing here is we need to move from being the systemizer now to being in a leader. The problems that kick up is processes exist, but not the leaders. The founder still approves all key decisions. And what we want to do is we want to build the leaders, not task, yeah? Because the heroics, which is very much under $4 million, is very much the heroics of the leader. There's lots of tribal knowledge, but it starts to break once you pass $4 million. Consistency now matters more than speed. Speed was great under 4 mil. Over 4 mil, the speed kills. Most businesses go out of business. If 7 businesses go above $4 million, 6 of those businesses go bang back to being well under 4 million, or they go out of business. Even though the actual most amount of roadkill happens when you're under $2 million. And that means that 99% don't get above. The thing is they can course correct quite quickly and it doesn't cost them so much. But once you get above the $4 million mark, it's a completely different beast. You make a mistake there and you go out of business. You either significantly stall or you die. And that takes us on to the next phase. And this is where we crank it from 8 into the $15 million range. This here is where yes, you've got you standing as a leader, but what we're really doing, the shift is how do we design other leaders? And the catchphrase here is how can you lead your leaders? What happens is accountability gaps start to fall into place. And what we want to do is also build your leadership bench. What do we mean by that? Is think of a footy team or a soccer team or a netball team, and just think about the team. You got your A players on the field or on the court, but you want to build a bench. So if someone leaves or you've got to remove them, you've got a bench ready to come in. So the game still goes on and you're still winning, what we see happens in people get caught here, go, this is what it is, and they get stuck and they don't expand out. And so then they get caught. Then the owner gets sucked back in and they start doing it, and all of a sudden the grind starts to happen and they start to spiral downwards. It doesn't need to be that way. So there are the first 4 of the different identity shifts that are required. If you want to get more of this, then there'll be a link so you can download the Evolve scaling system, and you can actually see, particularly if you're beyond that. But the vast bulk of businesses will be at least under $15 to $20 million. So just remember, the right strategy at the wrong time is the wrong strategy. Remember, the business isn't broken. It's just that the leader is misaligned with what stage the business is at. Which brings us to the real work. What are the identity shifts? Now, if you want individual support to help you diagnosing your stage and the specific identity shift required right now, the easiest way to do that is to book a growth driver call with us right now. There'll be a link below, and just do it. We'll get you started straight away. Remember, small hinges swing big doors. Quote from W. Clement Stone. As the business grows, the leader must shift across key identity dimensions. So let's go through and discuss what are those key dimension changes. So as you're going through in each of these criteria that I'm going through are going to help you to understand, oh, have I made that change across each one of these areas? So let's start with the first one. The first shift is being an activity-based leader and moving into being a value-based leader. To do this, you got to stop measuring your effort and start measuring how much you can leverage. The next mindset identity shift is moving from being the rescuer and become the enabler. So we want to stop saving people and start building capability and start building capacity. We're going to move from being a perfectionist to moving into holding standards. And this is all about being clear on what the dimensions are, clear on what you need to be putting in, and clear that the whole team knows where they're going to be held accountable to. We're going to go from where people are using their personal brain and moving to where they're moving to team autonomy. So what we're doing here is we're moving decisions out of your head and moving it into the group collective. In other words, what we're doing here is the collective wisdom is going to be way better than the individual brilliance of the one person who's searching or who is driving for perfectionism. Emotional decisions going to data-led decisions. The way I like to say this is data over drama. Overworking to boundary-based leadership. Moving ultimately from being an operator to becoming an owner, where the business becomes an asset. It's not just an extension of the one person, or as Jim Collins in his book wrote, it's the guru with 1,000 helpers. We don't want that. That's what this line is here, is the guru with 1,000 helpers. This is how you build a business on this side over here that can work without you, and you're building an asset. Now, each shift can feel like a loss before it feels like a gain. That is okay. That discomfort that you get is the price of evolution. Now, the fastest way to scale the business is to upgrade the leader. We don't fix the business, we evolve the leader and the business follows. So how do you know which shift you're avoiding right now? Let's get in and diagnose it. Now, you don't need to make all those 7 shifts right now. You just need to know what's the one that you're resisting and then focus on that one. So let's use a really simple diagnostic tool that's going to help you to identify where you're at and what you need next. So this is the Identity Performance Scorecard. And what it's going to do is going to help you across 10 specific areas from CEO identity, doer identity, delegation, standards, personal brand, micromanagement, team autonomy, workload and worthiness, hiring confidence and scale mindset, strategic decision making, and your value communication. So we're going to go through and you score yourself from 1 over here to 10 over here. And then once you score for each of these categories, you go through and you score yourself out of 100. And then we come across to where that puts you in the overall score. Now, we've done this time and time again, particularly for businesses that are in scale mode or in exit mode. And what we've found is if the business is really anything under 80, it's suffering in some sense, and it just doesn't need to be. The cool thing about these things that we've got down here is most of these items here are actually relatively simple to put in place. They usually don't cost you anything from the sense of any money outgoings. It's really what happens up here and what happens here. What the questions do is help you identify what's still holding you back. What decisions are just gut feel versus really driving it by data. And what are you rescuing instead of actually getting in and enabling? What are you avoiding and what structures should you put into place? You're going, oh, I don't want to do that because it feels like it's going to restrict your creativity. Now, score yourself honestly how you feel you are rating on that right now. And just understand that particularly under 80, this is going to require a significant upgrade of your identity. If you're in this level here, just know that's great for where you are. But as soon as the pressure of the next stage of growth happens, you'll get the tension. And from the tension, it'll require a new identity and you'll probably come down and you work your way up. So it's not like, oh, it's bad if I'm down here. No, it just means I know where I'm at and now I know what I need to do to move ahead. The moment you name the shift, the moment you know where you're sitting, the actions become super obvious. If you look at it, my background was a dentist for over 20 years. The hardest part was actually in the diagnosis, not the treatment plan. So for most people, they jump around doing lots of treatment, lots of different things in their business, but they haven't gone back to the root cause. They haven't gone back to the lead domino. And when you go back to the lead domino, it becomes really clear, and clarity is the key. And we have a saying, if you don't know exactly what you need to be doing in the next 15 minutes, then the first thing to seek out is clarity. And clarity collapses overwhelm. You don't need more motivation. What you need is the right identity for the level you're at and understand what the right identity is for the next level you're going to. And when the identity shifts, everything accelerates. So just know if pressure and tension are showing up right now, that's not a warning, it's an invitation. And if you want help making the right identity shift at the right time, then book a growth driver call with us right now and we'll get you sorted. Evolve the leader and the business will follow.